Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about my dream classroom and what I want my classroom to be like. So first, I want to be able to build a good community in my classroom. I want to be able to have caring relationships with my students and be able to have them talk to me whenever they need anything or whenever they need help. And I just want my students to be able to be comfortable around me and that I'm not seen as a threat instead a friend, but in a teaching kind of way. I also want to be able to have a positive environment in my classroom. Positive environment really can make or break your classroom. You need to have a place where your students feel safe and that they can learn in any way and they're not being picked on by other students. I want to be able to show my students that I truly do care about them and their learning, and I want them to learn the best that they can. And in my classroom, I want to make sure that my students are always smiling and having fun because that's really, school needs to be fun and encouraging. I'm going to take the time to get to know my students. So I'm on the first day of school and every day you need to make sure that you greet them at the door. This will be able to start you building that bond with your students and be able to make that connection where your students are feeling safe with you. I want to check in with them and make sure that they're being confident, and if they need help on anything, I can help them and be able to check in on them throughout the week and make sure that they're being able to understand everything they're being taught. I want to show interest in their lives. I want to make sure that I know my students. I know how they learn best. I want to make sure I know when they're having a bad day and be able to help cheer them up. I want to also make sure that I participate in the community so that my students can see me outside of the classroom and be able to still see me as a good person and see that I'm trying to help in the community too, not just in the classroom. And all of these points are taught in our classroom management lecture from Professor Jensen. In the first day of school video from Harry Wong, he talks about a lot of good things that we need to make sure we do on the first day of school. So he said we need to set the stage for the school year. So your first day really determines everything. You need to make sure that your students are there and ready to learn and that you have everything set up and ready for them to learn. Make sure that you have an assigned seating assignment done so that your students will be able to come in, sit down, and you guys can get right to work. Put an assignment on the board as a bell ringer so that as soon as the students are in the classroom, they're starting working. They know that classroom time is work time. They don't think it's time to come in and play. You need to establish consistency so that you're continually doing the same kind of, like, that your students know that they come in, they get to work, and then you start your lecture, and that is the routine. Have a good organizational pattern that students learn to quickly. You need to make sure that your classroom's not too complicated to find things and that you have a good pattern and a good idea built in of how you want your year to run. You need to set and establish the rules on the first day because if your students don't know what's expected of them on the first day, they're not going to really care to know the rest of the year. You need to make sure you build that bond and let your students know exactly what you expect of them and be able to show your students that you're really there to learn, you're really there to teach them, and they need to be willing to put in that effort. And Harry Wong said the first day determines your success for the whole entire school year. So you need to make sure that you are ready for that first day of school and have everything set up so that you do have a good school year. I want to have a well-managed classroom. I'm going to have a schedule that I stick to. Professor Jensen talked about how we need to make sure that the students are doing all the work, not the teachers. We need to make sure that you're not just standing up at the front of the classroom lecturing the whole entire time. You need to give the students time to work, and you need to be able to sit back and let them work. Yeah, you go around and you talk about things with them, but you need to let your students work. And that's one thing I'm really going to do in my classroom is make sure the students are doing more work than I am. I'm going to make sure that I encourage and praise my students when they're doing good and let them know that even if they did something wrong, they can still do it and they can get that boost back up and continue learning strong. I'm going to make sure that I have everything planned in advance because we know that, and I saw this in some of my observations I did, that if you do not have a set plan in advance, when a student finishes that first assignment, they're going to get bored and they're just going to end up goofing off because you don't have it planned out of what they're supposed to do next. Another thing that Professor Jensen talked about was we need to have a way to get our students' attention. This was also talked about in the Harry Wong videos. We need to come up with a way, whether it's playing a song, clapping your hands, putting your hand in the air, anything like that. You need to come up with a thing that will work in your classroom that you know can grab your students' attention. Next is the discipline plan. Harry Wong teaches that we need to manage our classrooms, not discipline our classrooms. If you have a good managed classroom, discipline won't be there. You won't need to discipline because your students know exactly what's expected of them. Professor Jensen taught that we should only have 3 to 5 rules and consequences. So you don't need to have 15 rules for your students to know. Give them 5 rules. 5 is enough and they will still get it and they will still learn it. And that was in his classroom management video as well. Have a plan so that you never yell or scream at your students. This is really important because you should never yell at your students. You need to be able to stay calm and you need to be able to talk to them about what the problem is and figure out a solution. And you need to give them the help that they need. But never yell at your students because as soon as you yell at your students, they have won. So for procedures, routines, and consequences, have procedures, not rules. We just talked about that. A rule is a dare meant to be broken, where a procedure is not. That's in Harry Wong's Discipline and Procedures video. Teach students the procedures from the beginning so that they are learning and know what is expected of them. So you need to start that on the first day, and then you teach your main procedures on the first day, and then throughout the first week and first couple of weeks, you teach them all the other procedures that aren't quite as important, like walking to the library. Good procedures and routines will help the class feel comfortable and make it feel like a safe environment because the students know exactly what's expected of them, there's no surprises, and they don't feel threatened. Set consequences that the student agrees with because they need to know exactly what a consequence is before they decide that they're going to need a consequence. So you need to make sure that you know how you're going to deal with it, and you need to make sure that those set consequences that you have made, that you live up to it for every student. Don't give any exceptions. And I'm going to make sure I do that in my classroom, making sure that the students know my classroom I want to have a climate of work. I'm going to encourage different types of work, group work, individual work, partner work throughout the whole entire time so that students are getting that different kind of social interaction. You want to make sure that you showcase your students' learning and their work. Post it on a wall, post it in the hallway, do anything that they did a really good assignment on, post it and encourage your student because that makes them feel good. Be inspirational and motivational always. That's something I really want to be really good at. I want my students to feel encouraged and feel like they can do it. I want to make sure that doubt is not in their head, that they aren't smart enough or they aren't strong enough. I want to make sure I'm motivational and can encourage my students. Another thing is the desk arrangement. In your classroom, you need to make sure that you can get access to your supplies, have space to move around, and make sure your students can see where the teacher will be at all times with how your desks are facing. And Professor Jensen did a really good job at explaining all of this to us in our design and learning environment lecture. Communication techniques. You need to be able to communicate really good with your student and the student's parents. So with the student, you need to be sure that they feel comfortable talking to you so that they know that they can come to you when they need help. You need to make sure that they know how they can reach you through phone or anything like that. Give lots of encouragement to your student because then they feel like they can communicate with you well. For parents, keep them informed on the student's progress. When the parents are involved, it makes it a lot easier. Make sure the parents know how to contact you. This is really important because if they don't, they're not going to know how to get help with anything when their student needs help. Build a good relationship. This will decrease conflict in the classroom. And that's something I really like that Professor Jensen gave on the communication lectures. We need to make sure that we decrease the conflict in our classroom. And if you have a good relationship with the parents and the parents have a good relationship with their student, conflict is going to decrease because the parents are involved in your students' lives. In conclusion, Harry Wong said that student achievement at the end of the year is directly related to the degree to which a teacher establishes good control of the classroom procedures in the very first week of the school year. And that was in his How to Be an Effective Teacher video. And I want to be an effective teacher, and I want to be able to have the best classroom that I can have. And here are my resources. Hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day.